also when you're tagging people who are not in what you're writing about is a big mistake. I think a lot of people go, oh, well, all these people like me, so I'm going to tag them. And every single time I post something, and all you're doing is alienating those people because you're tagging them too much. Now, if you're writing about them, tag them. But if you're not writing about them and you just want them to look at your stuff, I mean, it's hard, because if you get a lot, I have probably 20,000, whatever I have, connections on LinkedIn. If everybody's tagging me, then I'm looking at it to make sure it's not something, it's just not thoughtful to do that to somebody. And so I think a lot of people make that mistake trying to build their platform. I think that for me, I don't like to see too many tags, too many hashtags, too many of anything. It just looks like kind of like the too many icons on the television shows that you've been on. Now, I put a few up, and the ones that are meaningful to me, I'll put, like, Thinkers 50 Radar was a big deal to me because I'm on with a group of people from Harvard and around the world. Right. And it's a legitimate thing. I didn't pay to play. It's a great thing. So I'll put a notice of that on my site. And I think that as you start to develop things, you want to put those legitimate things on there, but you don't want to overwhelm with pictures of everything or tags of everything, and you want to tag everybody on everything.
You just can't list everything in your profile. I just ran out of bandwidth on my LinkedIn because I started listing, and I have done so many things, but I started listing one after another, and I just said, okay, some of these things have got to go. I did them a long time ago. They're no longer relevant, although they did support everything to where I've come now. Hard. Yeah. So you have to be a lot discriminating and scrutinizing and less interested in the numbers. And that's very hard with social media that has been formulated based on numbers.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, they're all different. You and I sat through some training this week that I thought was really interesting of how to build certain training programs and different things. And as I was watching some of that, I appreciated her delivery of how she explained things and got people interested. And I think what she does in terms of, and I'm not going to give her name out, but she was a very followed person in social media that tells you how to build courses and different things. But I really love the interactions that she did and the building of content that she did, but it took her probably a very, very long time to get to where she is. And she's, even now with huge following, she was saying she has to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at this time. I mean, she was just nonstop on it. So it brought to mind, I don't know if you remember one guy who was on my show who talked, I don't think I said one word the whole show because he told me everything he'd ever. He was the nicest guy, but he just, and I asked him how much time he spent on social media, and he says, oh, maybe 17 hours a day. And I'm thinking, well, how do you do anything other than social media?
Right.
I mean, that's not really income producing if that is your only time that you're, doing that, unless you get paid per click of some reason, that they're going somewhere because of that. And I don't think they were. So I think you have to find a balance of what you need to do.
Okay. I have the answer.
Okay.
Try to apply for when people are looking for a dog catcher, for example. Mm-hmm. If you're a dog catcher, try to apply for as many dog catcher interviews as somebody is offering. When you do find one or maybe even two people who always write about dog catching, mm-hmm. then continue to develop a relationship with that person. I have a number of people actually, with whom I have developed relationships over the years. And so it's easy for me to pick up a text or a phone or something and say, hey, I just wrote a new book. Would you be interested in writing about it or covering it or whatever? There's one woman I just met recently who writes out of the UK all about interpersonal relationships. And we did an interview and she liked what I had to say. And then I said, listen, call me anytime. I'm delighted to do that. And she has consistently called me to answer questions for her that she publishes. And then I see a bump up in my books. Now, this is not automatic. This is not guaranteed. And this is not quick, because to develop relationships takes time.
Yeah.
But these people will come to you, and that makes you the legitimate authority in these people's writings.
Well, as you said, that it brings to mind several groups I'm in that have helped me in different ways. I'm in a lot of author groups. I'm in a women's author group. I'm in a men and women author group. I'm in a speaker group. I'm in so many different areas where people share, and they're like legitimate, really good, strong authors and speakers and whatever that have found their way into these connective groups. And sometimes you can start your own if you have a specific thing that you think you could help people with. I see more success with those on Facebook than I do on LinkedIn. The groups, for some reason, on LinkedIn
I don't see
never took off, and I don't know why.
Are there groups on LinkedIn?
That's an answer to if they work or not. If you have to ask that question.
Well, how about that? I have never
LinkedIn Live is doing okay, but and Facebook Live is doing okay. But I think the Facebook groups, I think people like to chat about things on Facebook. I don't know. It does really well. And like the thing we were in yesterday, that was Facebook.
That was Facebook, and that was a group.
It was a group. It was very good.
After we left that little workshop that this woman was giving, I started to look at some of the comments from the people in that group.
Yeah.
And boy, I learn a lot from what they're asking or whatever. Right. I found it, however, dismaying that the person who ran the workshop was not in that.
A lot of people do that. They'll do a webinar and they will create the content, and then they repeat it. And so you think you're in a live thing and you're not.
That was not live yesterday.
It didn't appear that it was, but she seemed like she was trying to make it seem like she was by listing the
I thought it was live at first.
Well, she said the date coming up. And what she was doing is she was picking like, oh, thank you, so-and-so, for asking this question. And she'd put it up on the screen. But there's probably some questions she gets asked an awful lot, and she probably took it from a past webinar. And people do that so they're not on screen 24/7. And they, as long as it feels pretty close to you being live, and she does answer questions somehow when you go back into content, I don't really have a problem with that. But
I have been on some groups, one of which is an exercise group, and you see that people were saying, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And all of a sudden, a representative from the manufacturer of this piece of equipment or somebody who has sold the bands, for example, the bands that I gave you.
I know, I like those.
I love them. So they will jump on. They are a representative from the company, and they will jump on. And I have more faith in what they have to say than Mary Jane in Iowa somewhere, who's just trying to do this on her own and lose some pounds. And, but I'm interested in hearing from the manufacturers as to whether my form is right, or whether if I do this, will that happen? So that's what I found lacking with this woman. And she can't be everywhere all the time, of course. No. But it's nice.
I thought you did a pretty good job of making it look like it was live. Some of them, it's obvious is not live.
I do.